So let me share my screen maybe so that I can use this for welcoming. Maybe we can wait a couple of minutes more. We are 61 people, so that's a very nice audience.
Yes.
So
excellent.
We can get a couple of minutes more, and then I introduce ourselves and the panelists and everyone.
So there's already some people chatting.
Yeah.
Oh, just saying hello.
So,
okay.
So let me see if I can see. Now I lost the chat. So
is Colin joining us as well? Is that...
I'm here.
Yep.
Oh, you're there. Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so we have the questions and well, I don't see the chat anymore. Okay, so here's it. I see it.
So I do have I'd rather it be Q&A, but I do have a presentation I can run through quickly if that's the format that everyone wants to use.
Yeah, so it's going to be like if you have a couple of slides.
Yeah, I could do that. That's
going to be fine. It's just for having some visual back so that we can share something apart from our faces. And but yes, I think most important are the questions that people might have and that we might try to answer. And as well, I have a couple of questions as well, so that we can also derive the discussions. So it's 5 minutes to past 4, so I think we can start now. Thanks everyone for joining. So we have 62 people, so that's a fantastic number. So thanks all of you for joining for this career session, and especially thank you to the panelists that we have here. I will present them now. We will have Frank Gurkakiak from ETH Zurich, that he will be providing the academic perspective from career life. We have Andrea Kells from ARP that she will provide the industrial perspective. We have Ray Garcia, some of you might know from the entrepreneurship session from last couple of days. And we also have Koen de Boucher, that he is always giving some final remarks, some wrap up, like very nice ones. And we also have Antonio Louro, that he will be helping with the Q&As, and he will be helping as well for the discussion. And well, myself, I'm Xavier Salazar, and myself and Antonio, we work at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center as strategy support officer, and we provide support to these recruitment and career activities at HiPEAC. And well, very important, as I was telling, the most important of this session, I think, is the Q&As that you could have, and that we can help and to solve any kind of doubt or any kind of question that you might have. So we invite you to use the Zoom chat and to start getting as many questions as you have, or any question that you might have. So I saw many of you that were already using them. So let's make a test. So I would like to ask you to post on the chat, like if you are grad students, if you are master students, if you are PhD, if you are working in a company, so that well, don't be shy and start posting. Okay, very good. So share. Oh, we have nice. Okay, undergrad, PhD, going to PhD. Oh, we have many people answering. Very good. Okay, so now we know how to use the chat. So anytime you have a question, try to post it here. Antonio will try to collect the most interesting ones. And then, well, any other questions that cannot be answered during the session, we will also try to collect them and try to answer somehow at some point. Okay, we will try to use the Mattermost or some way to answer these questions. Okay, so let's start with it. So no need to write it on the chat, but if everyone can think about where have you ever thought where you want to be in the next 10 years? So you want to stay in academia, to go to the industry, to be an entrepreneur, junior researcher, university professor, senior engineer, team leader. Well, it depends on the path you choose. You might have very different skills or capabilities, or it's different to work depending on the domains and the areas that you are. So especially different are the works in academia and in industry. So since we have different panelists, we'll get their views there. So one very brief description, like it's in academia, the main goal is to provide sound results to research and to get and discover how things work. Whereas if you are in industry, you have to be liable to provide some solution to those any problem that you might have. However, I mean, even if the skills you need, depending on the world, might be different, the ones that you developed when you are doing research, they are very useful for when you are in industry, and the opposite, vice versa, as well. Many of the skills that you develop while you are in industry, they are also very valuable when you are doing research. So at the end of the day, I was asking, where do you want to be in 10 years? You might have some idea, some plan that might look easy, but the reality is that life can have many changes. And at the end of the day, well, one of the things that you have to ask yourself is like wherever you are working, it's that facilitates yourself to well to get along your career path. Okay, so there are many many career paths, like I was telling, university professor, junior researcher, team lead, executive, senior engineer with technical responsibilities, executive, or all in one. I mean, at the end of the day, you might end up having a family and raising. That's my daughter, by the way. The ones that have been attending following presentations, you know her, or in previous ACACES summer school. Well, you might have many choices. So we are HiPEAC. How can we as HiPEAC help you? So we are a network. For the ones that don't know us so much, we are a network of almost 2,000 European experts in advanced computing and high performance and embedded architecture and compilation. We organize many activities that help you to accompany throughout your career. So we have so I'm representing these jobs and careers sessions, but we have challenges for students. We have mentoring sessions. We have the many events like the Inspiring Futures at the Computing Systems Week. We do have internships. We have a big conference, more than 600 people attending every year. And well, we have many activities. Many of you are students, so you can check all the benefits that HiPEAC is offering for you as a student from the website. So feel free to visit us and to check everything that we can do for you. We normally organize 4 main events per year. This is the ACACES, so you already know this one. Next one is going to be the Computing Systems Week in Tampere, if COVID enables us to organize it. Otherwise, we will organize it anyway. And the conference is going to be held in Budapest. For the Computing Systems Week, we always organize a challenge for students. So we invite you to take part in it. For the conference as well, we organize what we call the STEM Day, where it's one full day that we invite the students to join the conference for free without having to pay any buck, any pound, or any money for it. And we invite you to join, and then we guide you along the exhibition. We present the different people you can attend all the activities you want, and it's a very nice opportunity to get in touch with everyone. We have the HiPEAC internships program, which it's a very good opportunity to get on board with our community as well. Now we have the program open, and we have like more than about 25 internship opportunities. So feel free to ask us and to apply for them. As well, we have the jobs portal for any kind of full-time position. And it's in all kind of levels, engineering, or whether if you want to go to academia or industry. So you can find everything, and it's all over Europe. So it's normally good, very good opportunities to find good career here in Europe. We have most important companies, university research centers, SMEs. We have ETH Zurich, with since we have one of the panelists. We also have ARM, and we don't have raise venture capital backup companies, but I will invite also his companies and his also to post any kind of opportunity in there. And well, I promised that it was going to be was going to take 10 minutes to do this. So 10 minutes passed. So I think it's time to give the word to the panelists, so to our really experts. So thanks a lot for joining us in this session. And well, I would like to give first the word to Frank Gurkakiak. So if you want to, I think you had a couple of slides to present yourself and the academic perspective. Then I will pass the word to Andrea, and then to Ray, and then back to me. Okay, so Frank.
I'll try to take over.
Yeah.
Let me see, maybe I manage.
Yes, you did.
Okay, so this is me. Xavi asked me to present a few slides. So my name is Frank. Everybody calls me Frank. I'm what they call a senior scientist working at ETH Zurich, and senior scientist basically means I'm old. Just a very short story. I was born and raised in Turkey. I did my master's there, and then my career led to US, then back to Switzerland, and I've been working here at ETH Zurich since 2008. Just to give you an idea, it's basically ping-ponging back and forth. And the question, we had some questions that they were given to us to talk about. So how did I choose this path? And I have to admit, it was mostly coincidence and luck. I liked being at the university. I had some opportunities, and I ended up where I am. This is the truth. This is probably not what you should be doing. You need to really work for your career. It's not a good idea to hope for luck. At the time, I wasn't aware of it, but a few years later, when I see what happened to me, I realized that there was a lot of good fortune involved, and it's not a sustainable way of looking at it. So you have to think while you are during your master's, while you are during your PhD, you should really think about what do I want to do, in which direction do I want to go, and you need to prepare it. And so always this question, academic versus industrial, I didn't have the entrepreneurial viewpoint, and you know, both are excellent choices. Something that I want to add, if you think about academia, you need to learn how to write. We write a lot. We need people who can write, who can express their things. And if you are interested in industry, please take your time. There are in all universities, some classes, some opportunities to focus on business. Do not wait until you know, you're um, out of the university to start thinking about the business aspect of things. So this is the simplest thing I can say. The other thing is very important, especially students these days. Everyone can Google. You need skills to do things better than others. This is what you need to do. This is what will get you hired. Just being able to look up things on the internet cannot be your main skill, because a lot of people can do that, and you want to get the jobs that are better than what the average people can manage to do. We see this a lot. So know your strengths and your weaknesses at the same time. There's no point in being very proud or ashamed of your strengths and weaknesses. It's just important to know what they are. If you know them, then you know you can work to your strengths and you can work to improve your weaknesses. This could be you know, your presentation skills, this could be your analytical skills, this could be writing, and it is important to understand how you stand and work for it. When we have people, when we are hiring people to work with us, the most important things that we are looking at are people that are able to work with system, that take notes and document well. We want to have people that know what they are doing, and especially why they are doing it that way. So these are much more important than, I don't know, grades in mathematics or being a genius or something like that. So we find these to be one of the more important things. I always try to tell the students that university is an opportunity. There are many interesting people around, and you can learn from everyone, even people that you do not consider to be very good. You can still learn a lot from them. Try to work with good people and challenge yourself. Don't take the easy road. Be part of projects that reach an end. This is sometimes important because you can always start a very overly ambitious project that will never finish correctly. And you don't, I mean, you still learn something from that, but you learn more from projects that reach to an end, that you also get some results back. And it's important to be, while you're challenging yourself, not to overdo it. We get a lot of questions about grades. I've seen a lot of students coming to my office claiming that I ruined his career because they had they got a bad grade. So the grades are for you, they're not for others. A low grade tells you basically that, you know, more was expected from you. So if you're interested in this field, you should be doing more. And a high grade means basically, okay, you know, we gave you a course and I think you have what it takes, what we were expecting the level to be. So it's a feedback for you. And I'm just going to close. I know it's a controversial movie, but I just like it. Whiplash from 2014. It's about a very, I would even say sadistic teacher trying to get more out of his student. And they says there are no two words in the English language more harmful than good job. So with that, I'm done. I think the questions we will have at the end. Thanks a lot for listening. And I now give over, I think, to Andrea.
Thanks, Frank. I'm going to try and share my screen as well, and hopefully this will work if I can find it. Hang on. I think the wrong one's come up. Just bear with me. I've got too many different screens open. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Is there anything coming through? Hang on, let me try this again. This one. The joys of technology. Let's see. Share.
Yep.
Okay, got it. Let me just make this into a slideshow. Okay, hopefully you can all see this now. So I'm going to give an even briefer overview than Frank, I think, because like everyone else, I'm most interested in the questions that come at us and in trying to help all of you answer the things that are most pertinent in your mind. So as having introduced me at the start, my name is Andrea Kells. I work in ARM, which I'm sure most of you will have heard of, where I'm the director is look after all of our academic and research collaborations across Europe. So we have quite a few university and other company partners that we work on various research projects. So I am not a computer scientist by training. You'll see there on my screen, I actually have a PhD in insect biology. So I've taken a rather random path, I think, to get to where I am now. Like I said, I'm a biologist by background. How did I get to work in ARM in the role that I'm in now? Well, I went into scientific consultancy for a bit after my PhD. I then went into Cambridge University, where I worked as a project manager on some industrial collaborative projects. A chance meeting after a while there led to me doing something similar in the computer science department in Cambridge. And then about 2 years ago, I moved to my current role in ARM. And I guess throughout all of this, there were a few key things that can summarize how my career has developed. So I always knew, and I always have known, what I didn't want to do. So I never wanted to be a postdoc when I finished my PhD. I was much more interested in the breadth of what I was doing rather than the depth of what I was doing. But also, I knew what I liked doing. I wasn't quite sure where the end result might get me to, but what I did really enjoy was being around scientists and engineers and seeing scientific projects come alive and move from idea right through to implementation. So I was always quite clear on that aspect of what I liked and what I enjoyed doing. I also wasn't afraid to take risks and jump on opportunities that came my way. I mean, sometimes maybe there was a slight fear factor involved, but if an opportunity came up, it always won out. The excitement of getting involved in something new won out over the risk of actually doing the new thing. And also, and I think this is pretty important, I had some great mentors along the way, whether I cultivated them deliberately or they sort of accidentally almost evolved into that role. And I guess that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you guys online today, was some key points about career management, career journeys that hopefully you will take as takeaways. I'm happy to answer specific questions about ARM and working in industry as well in the question session. But I think these are probably more important as general points. I mean, first and foremost, you own your own career path. It's your responsibility and not anyone else's. So it doesn't belong to your boss, it doesn't belong to your partner or your parents or your friends or anything else. You are responsible for your own career path. So working out what you actually like doing, and at least as importantly, what you don't like doing, is pretty important in having ownership of that. But it's also not a bad thing to change that path as you go along. It doesn't need to be set in stone. It gives you a direction to head in. And it's also not necessarily a bad idea not to have a plan at all. I certainly didn't have a plan and would never have envisaged ending up where I am now. And from what Frank said, he didn't sound like he had much of a plan either. So although he would posit that that's not the best advice to follow, you'd actually be surprised how many people out there didn't have a plan, or certainly their end job or the positions that they're in now weren't the ones that they ever planned finding themselves in. But also I think it's important to say that you shouldn't just drift along either. I mean, I know through my time in academia and even through engaging with universities in my time in ARM, there are people out there in universities who have been on a perennial postdoc career path for 20 years or more, and it's not what they wanted to do. It doesn't make them happy, but they never really thought about what else they wanted to do. There was always another 2-year post or a 3-year post that came up, and it was the easiest thing to do, but it wasn't the right thing for them to do. And the longer you spend doing that sort of career, sort of sideways move, the harder it is to to then pivot and do something else. So be aware of that danger of just drifting along, taking the easiest things that come up. I would say it's also important to keep learning and identify learning opportunities, and use every job or every project as an opportunity to try something new or learn something new and to add to your skills base. And that can be either deep technical knowledge, going further and further into a project and becoming the real expert, or broadening your skills and picking up new perspectives, working alongside people with a completely different skill set and seeing what you can things either within your existing role or taking on something else outside what you do at the moment. And don't fear failure. Things like the number of times that I hear students and younger staff say to me, oh, I didn't apply for that job because I was scared what would happen if I didn't get it. I was afraid to take that step just in case I didn't get it. Job applications where you don't get the job can be sometimes as instructive as those where you do get the job. Going through the process, updating your CV, getting used to interviews and things like that. It's all part of learning and developing your career. And also just the general importance of networking, finding mentors, making connections. And don't be afraid to ask senior folks for advice, even if what you want to do is talk to your current boss about whether you should apply for a new job. You will find if you have a good boss that they will be interested in your career path, and talking to them about new positions isn't a bad thing to do because they know how you work and they know what might suit you and what might not suit you. The position that I currently have in ARM was as a result of having a conversation with a senior colleague and being talked into applying because I thought that it wasn't the job for me. And actually that was one of the wisest conversations that I reflect that I ever had with a senior colleague. And as Javi pointed out at the start, I mean, HiPEAC is pretty critical here. It's a great network. There are lots of opportunities that he highlighted, lots of ways to use either the web resources or the academics or the companies that are engaged with the network, and to really use that as a springboard in taking forward your future careers. And with that, I will hand over to Ray. And stop sharing.
Thanks a lot, Andrea. So,
Okay.
Ray.
Yeah, excellent. I really appreciate both Frank and Andrea's talk, and as I listen to them speak, and I'm a perpetual student, so certainly reflecting on their comments about my own career and thinking about what I'm going to say. And as they were speaking, I thought that I should change my presentation, but I already have a presentation, so I'll keep it. But there's two things I want to say, kind of in sort of playing on what they stated, which is this idea of a plan. I have a plan. I have a plan about my past, but I have no plan about my future, right? And what I mean by that is there's always in my head sort of this narrative about what my past was like and how I got there. But the reality is, which I think was a point that Andrea and Frank are saying, it's a discovery and an exploration, and it's a surprise, and you think it's one thing and it turns out to be something else. Opportunities are everywhere, and the main challenge that I've had, and I suspect my esteemed colleagues also had, is seeing them when they're present, right? And so, and sometimes you need help with that to have some clarity, to see something as an opportunity that you otherwise would have just not seen or just completely discounted. So my challenge at my age and my career is to not have my past define my future. Right? So shedding. And my plan is to have that narrative about my past help propel me into a discovery of what the future is. And of course, there's a multitude of problems to solve, endless, which I'm disturbed at my generation having thinking that it solves some problems, and in effect, we actually made the problems even larger and more complex. So, so the next, you know, I feel indebted to the next generation to be in the service of the next generation to help them maybe figure it out and not make things worse. But there's another point, another aspect of sort of within the presentations, which I also want to emphasize, which I won't talk about now, but it's an interesting topic to have and maybe for consideration in Cone in the future, in a future session or conference, is to have a discussion about what is success and what is failure, right? I have actually written it down and have defined it for myself. And when I've presented this in my entrepreneurship courses, it's a very interesting reaction and very interesting dialogue. The one thing I can say, which is there's a historical context, so failure has changed dramatically over hundreds of years, what that means, including what success means. We are in a generation now where certain considerations about what is success, personal and societal and those sorts of things, the definition of success has lots of cultural, economic, personal implications, societal implications. So I do think that it's worth the audience reflecting on defining what that is for yourself, and then also defining success and defining failure not in opposition to each other. So failure not being the absence of success, or the opposite, right? Success being the absence of failure. Because failure is on its own terms and success is on its own terms. And the reality is most of our life is somewhere in between, and we vacillate and cycle between these two things. A lot of people in the audience are, I assume, in their career, somewhere along their careers, as many researchers have done some degree of programming or coding or encoding or describing in words a problem and a solution. And I think within that, we all see that the debugging process is really essential. I wrote a number of books about my experiences in business, and I didn't consider myself a writer. I didn't necessarily consider myself a teacher, but I had lots to say, and I was invited to start teaching and training other entrepreneurs. I thought I knew something. I started to teach, and I realized I knew nothing, because I couldn't explain what my successes were about and how my failures happened. And then in the process of teaching over the course of 5 years, I took the material and I started to write a book, partly because other teachers were asking me, how do I teach what you're teaching? And can you teach me how to teach this topic? And so I started to write it down. And of course, the natural thing happened, which is the editing process, which was horrendous. So I wrote a book and I had to edit it 7 times. And I read my books now and I'm appalled at the number of mistakes I see in it. Right, so there's a parallel to that and writing software. All right, so I'm going to go over I'll share the presentation very quickly. Let's see here. We'll go through share screen. I'll go through this very quickly. It's about 20 slides. I'm going to talk through it really fast, and then we can go through Q&A. All right, let's see here. Yeah, all right, so I actually did this presentation for faculty. There's 40 faculty that asked me to come and speak to them at a university in New York City. And they wanted to encourage their students to stay within the program and not essentially quit school and go work for industry. And then New York City is a very highly competitive environment. There's lots of companies there that look for talent, and they're willing to pull that talent out of their studies, sort of midstream. And I had that experience early on because I went to engineering school. I finished for 4 years. I changed my major multiple times because I was interested in a lot of things, but eventually I got through engineering school. And I started a master's program in computer science. I ended it after a year, and then I went to business school, and I ended that after a year. And the reason is because I was already working in industry, and I was already making so much more money than I would have made without it, with a degree, that I thought it was pointless for me to continue to get a degree. And after working in companies, I realized that it was something I was going to do in order to accumulate some assets, but I was not going to work for a corporation for the rest of my life. I was going to build a company at some point. And that's how my career sort of emerged. I worked for 4 of the largest banks in the world, accumulated some assets, and then I was done with that and said, I'm never going to do that again. Then started a technology company and built it, built the product, built the team. We went from 0 to 300 people. We raised lots of money, and then we sold it to a public company. And then I've done that a number of times along the way. It failed, and now I have a number of companies for which I have helped launch and have an equity stake in, and also act as the interim CTO to get it started. But I start the companies and I find my replacement immediately. So that's enough of my background. Students, when they go look in the job market, it's all about, show me the money, right? Where are the jobs? So from my perspective, and these are industries that I have some involvement in to varying degrees, and I'm also looking at it from a big city perspective, not necessarily, there's lots of opportunities globally, but the areas that I'm most interested in, the areas that I've worked in, is banking, advertising, healthcare, transportation, and energy. I would add to this agriculture, partly because I recently started a company in Finland. In one of my previous talks on entrepreneurship, one of the guys that was presenting as a panelist is in that company. We were developing optimization solutions for the developing world targeted to agriculture in particular. So I would add that as another industry. So what will people do in those jobs? Basically grunt tasks for years, clean up and test. When I first started working in banking, you come in at an entry level and you got to be willing to basically deal with the crap, just jobs that nobody else wants. And if you're not unwilling to do that, if you come in and think you're the smartest person in the room, I've got a PhD, why am I doing this grunt work? Forget it, you're not going to be able to survive it, and you're probably not going to progress. So don't expect to enter industry from the top. With one of the companies, I have a number of companies, but one of my recent companies, I hired 2 very experienced people, and they know that when they come to work for me, they're starting at the bottom. Right? Even though they have 10 years experience with IBM, with industry, I don't care about any of that. When you come work for me, you have to first be an entrepreneur. You start at the bottom, the basics, and you learn how to write effective commercial software and come up with products that work for the customers. It's not an easy skill unless you've done it within a new venture environment and you've encountered the difficulties of doing that. You're not gonna, I don't care how much experience and what big names and what big school you went to and how many PhDs you have, I can care less. When you come to work in one of my companies, you start from the bottom and you learn how to do it professionally and commercially. And so that's a skill. You have to be willing to do that. Check your ego at the door, come in and basically learn and do the grunt work. Young people, starting the next 50 years, right? Do the job no one else wants, clean up the mess, start with testing and QA. There's something that I do in my companies, which I call adversarial programming. So I have 2 teams. The teams that are putting the testing and QA hate it because they think, oh, I'm a developer, I shouldn't be doing testing QA. But their challenge is, I want you to write code to break the code that the other team is doing. And so it creates a little bit of a gaming competition, and it makes overall the code much better. And some of my best people I actually put into the hacking side of the thing, because they have to guess how everyone else is thinking, and then they effectively break everything. Do routine stuff. You have to have a culture of tolerance, and you temper your ego. Skills and knowledge, how to get the job. Master one thing better than all your peers. That's the way I did it. Then share it with everyone. So don't master it and think that you have to keep it within yourself. Find people who know it better than you and then repeat it. The best way to think about this is Einstein is a brand first and he's a brain second, right? It's not how people think of these things, but there are a lot of smart people in the world that no one's ever heard of, no one will ever know. We have esteemed panelists here. You know, this notion of genius is, I think, is a mythology. There is no such thing as a genius. They all come with a team. They all collaborate with people. Even Einstein, not his wife isn't given that much credit, but I would argue that Einstein is not an individual that is a genius that's exceptional, right? He's a brand, just like Picasso is a brand, just like others. And so it's a notion that I have. Don't strive to be a genius, strive to essentially find other people to collaborate with and work as a team. Again, master one thing and then progress from there. What can faculty do to prepare the students understand business? Frank mentioned, taking courses in business. Andrea obviously works now in a corporate setting and found some opportunities there, working in a research capacity. But as we had talked about in the entrepreneurship sessions, and even Cone, elaborated yesterday, he's been in academia and he also framed some of his activities as sales activities, and in effect, he's running a business. HiPEAC isn't a business in the arm sense, but it is a business in the sense of all the same skills that he needs to organize this and pull this off are skills that you would actually use in business as well. Integrating theory and practice. So you need to know the theory, but you need to put it into practice. Unfortunately, a lot of the curriculums don't have industry readiness, but as Frank highlighted in what Cohen has explained to me, and again, in particular, these schools do have opportunities for students to go and potentially explore opportunities as entrepreneurs, explore business. Industry is always interested in research. You can always find somebody to mentor, to talk to. I mean, certainly this forum is an example. So you can create your own environment, your own curriculum for things that maybe your university isn't offering you, but don't leave it to your university. You need to basically create your own educational environment. This is a lifelong activity. Learning doesn't stop when you finish a PhD. You will always be doing research and you'll always be learning. And if you work in industry or you work as an entrepreneur, it's all about continuing that process. Real world projects over 4 years, or as you're doing your PhD or master's or whatever, learn how to frame a problem, find a fit for use, understand and learn how to use the tools, practice to the point of mastery, learn the theory, build and extend your own tools, and then share your solutions. In my first company, what I had to do is I had a very small team. We didn't have a lot of funding. We had very demanding customers. We sold to some of the largest companies, global companies in the world, and I had a very small team. I actually had to build tools to write software for me, because at that point, there wasn't anything like no code or case tools or anything like that. So I wrote code to write code. And so I was mostly not a developer. I was actually writing tools, creating tools, right? And when you think of it from the perspective of great artists create new mediums, they create new techniques, they create new ways and new tactics to create their art. And the same thing happens with entrepreneurs. When you have a stressful situation, you've got to figure out how to not just use the tools that are out there, but build the tools and configure the tools in the way that works best for you. This is a modern context, polyglot programming. You live in Europe, you got to speak multiple languages, or at least be familiar with it or comfortable in multiple languages. This is never ending. This is now growing. People now coming out of universities, everyone wants to create their own domain-specific language for a problem. It's okay. Learn all these languages, but I would say learn how to develop a language that then fits the problem. as a skill. And if you become polyglot programmer, then you can forget all this and then focus on, you know, the problem itself and using the best tool for the problem. Unfortunately, we live in a world where technology is fashion, so there's always people converging on a few things that seem to win. But when you talk about high performance computing and the embedded world, there's lots and lots of ways of solving the problem. And some of the conventional stuff, the tools and stuff sometimes just don't work, or not going to get you to the best solution. This is an area of my particular interest, literate programming. We write code. I hire people who write code for other people to read. Yes, of course, that code has to run optimally on the processors. That's an assumption. But anyone who can write really highly optimized code that no one else can read, I'm not interested. I don't hire. Those people are hotshots, they're hackers. They might be great developers for other developers, but they don't function in business because the business and the code and the solution has to stand on its own merit, and it has to be available for other people to read and customize. Some of the most successful software is not actually the best software for the processing. It's actually software that is easy for others. So in the open source community, how you build it, how you get lots of people to participate is essentially writing programs that other people can easily absorb and could grow, right? Because we have this issue of complexity. Economics of tech debt, this is a really important one. I've had a number of situations where I grew companies that had massive amount of tech debt, hit obsolescence curve, technology changed on us, and then the company didn't function. We had to basically sell the company because we couldn't go raise capital, re-architect everything all over again. And this is a general problem in the industry. So how you handle this is solve the problem with the best tools that you've created, but then you've got to get into the market really, really fast, make as much money as you can, sell it, solve the problem, and then move on. I like this live coding as a performance. I like to put my teams up against each other, throw it up on the screen. You get two people, start coding, attacking each other so that everyone can learn. So it's a quick way of sharing. This is actually happening within the gaming community now, and you can find some competitions that do live programming. I wish there was more of this in our community, but you know, maybe that'll happen in the future. I'm speaking to the audience, so I have to say much about that. These are all topics that Cohen had described as future areas for people to sort of focus on. He has lots to say about that yesterday, so I won't say much about that. And then the two essential skills that I find are really scarce is the ability to debug, and then ability to write optimal solutions. I think in this community, we all understand that coding, programming, work, business is a social construct, and you have to be able to work with your peers. There's global competition. You know, this stuff is now a commodity, but top talent remains scarce. Avoid technology as a fashion, and then the new value is created by entrepreneurs, not by technocrats. You know, the jobs, frankly, unfortunately, I think the jobs are going to have to be created. The jobs don't exist. There's a few big companies that buy other companies. Like I said yesterday in my entrepreneurship course, I have students who could have gone to work for big companies. Gabriele, who's one of my students in the company that he started and I have equity in, he's a good example. He could have gone to work for any big company. I told him, don't do that, create your own company. And now these big companies are going after him to buy his company, right? And so he's created jobs in his small area. And so those people who really want to make a difference, you know, I'm not suggesting you don't go work for ARM. You should go do that. It's a great company. You learn a lot, but also consider taking on problems that maybe that company wouldn't take on, potentially building a company and then selling it back to ARM. That's a path that I encourage people to consider. It's a really hard path. It's not an easy one, but as other esteemed speakers spoke, you know, they didn't necessarily take the easy path. I didn't take the easy path. And what I'm suggesting is challenge yourself, right, as much as possible. Okay, I'm done with the talk, and now we can go with Q&A.
Okay, so thanks a lot, Ray. So let me come back to my screen. So one moment. Okay, so I was having many questions prepared, but I think you almost answered everything. So that's very nice, because this will enable us to jump over the questions of the audience. I mean, we had this presentation, or this short presentation on where did you come from, and what was your path, and that's very nice, because whenever we have this these discussions, it's always like the recommendation that you should have some sort of path, but normally everybody tells that you just happened to be where you are. So that's very fine. That's very interesting insights always. As well, we have seen these differences and similarities between academia, industry, and entrepreneurship. So I think there were very nice points. We had this this French entrepreneur in some other discussions that he was like he liked to talk about the fire workers, like being in academia would be the ones that are designing the things that the fire extinguishers. The ones that are in a big company, they are like in a station, like with the fire workers, and each of them, they have some sort of prefixed role that it's limited, but they can really afford to do like huge stuff. And then while you are in an SME, you do everything, and then it's like you should be able to have like all kinds of skills as well. So I think it's good point for getting Antonio to drive the discussion on the questions and the Q&As. So we got several questions. So if you would like to introduce them to the speakers.
Yeah, thank you to all the speakers. Really interesting experience, and at least for me as well, really nice. So I think we should start with the basic one that well, affects all of us. It's on any comments on a balance between professional and personal life. I think it's interesting to know in the different fields, how is this relationship between work and personal life? Frank, would you like to start?
Why did you single me out? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like everything, you have to work for those things. You have to be careful that the work doesn't consume you. At the same time, I mean, I'm not the expert on this, but there are plenty of books and help things written on this. Basically, the work might be more fulfilling for you, so you might be more willing to work. I can give you an idea. Why didn't I end up in the industry? I was working 98 as you know, summer jobs during your PhD. You were interning at different companies. I was at Motorola, and that was the only time I worked from 9 to 5. It was, the job did not care about me so much personally. I had to do a bit part. They were happy to pay me. I didn't mind it. You know, I came there at 9, I left there at 5. And here, sometimes I work maybe 12 hours a day because I maybe enjoy being here more, but everybody has to also put some borders. When you go to holiday, don't read email, just say, I'm gone. This is my holiday. On the weekends, don't feel pressure to come to work. You know, you have to put your boundaries and work for it if you want to have your private sphere. I don't know. That's me.
Thank
Do you want
you.
me?
Yeah.
So I think it's all about finding a balance, and at different times of life, you will have different personal priorities. You know, once you have children, for example, or have other caring responsibilities, the balance of priorities that you have will change from what you might have had when you were straight out of university. And it is about finding the balance that works for you. I would say from my time in university and now in industry, and with a husband who is an active academic leading a research group, that actually, you know, both industry and academia have pluses and minuses, and often it comes down to your boss and the people around you. So it's not necessarily a big difference between academia and industry, but it's more about the setup that you have around you, both in work and in your personal life as well. And sometimes you have to have difficult conversations with people. You have to stand up in job interviews and ask questions that you're not quite sure whether you should be asking. But if you're you need to know them and give enough to ask those questions. But also there's a recognition that you can't have it all, particularly when it does come to a balance between a young family and work, that there have to be sacrifices to be made sometimes, and you're the one that has to choose which way that goes. And for different people, the balance will be different.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Ray?
Yeah, I can answer that question, but I need to give some context. One is, I was born and raised in New York City, right? And I was born from an American perspective, from an immigrant family with no means. So that's important context. Where my family came from a farming community, and my mother grew up, you know, as a child with, you know, water from a stream. Okay, and my grandfather had a zinc roof with chickens. Very happy people, very purposeful and stuff. So understanding that background, then you'll understand my comments, right? So entrepreneurship, work and stuff was not a matter of a choice. It was a necessity for survival. And growing up in New York City, from my background, I had to work twice, 3, 4 times harder than anyone else to have any opportunities. I spent years not being able to get even a job in a restaurant washing dishes. So it's all about context. Now, in the US, we have no social backup at all. And it's brutal capitalist economics. And I'm in New York City, in the center of finance, with super wealthy people and super people who are really struggling, right? And so in my career, early on, I decided I need to figure out how to enjoy the work that I do. And then I expected as a child, because I started to work when I was 12 years old, that I would only work every day, every hour, and not do anything else. So I got married. My wife was a tremendous pillar. Without my wife, I could never have had the success that I had, but we had no children. I work every day. I have done that. I've done so for years. Doesn't mean I don't go on holiday. It doesn't mean that I don't. My work is my enjoyment. My work is my purpose. My work is what I wake up to do. I'm spending time with you guys. I'm not doing it for work. It's my pleasure. It's my passion. I wouldn't want to be doing anything else with my time right now, right? And so, and then as an entrepreneur, I could have worked. I worked in a bank, yes, 9 to 5, but to compete in a bank on Wall Street, it wasn't 9 to 5. Okay, because I was an executive in a bank. An executive in a bank, you have as much vacation as you want. The reality is that if you take vacation, it's going to have consequences, right? And so, yes, you take vacation, but really there is no vacation. 3 mobile phones, reading constantly, working 16 hours a day, right? And every day of the week. I now work, I have multiple businesses I'm involved in. I work every day of the week. I take calls Saturdays, Sundays. I could be on calls with China in the middle of the night. At 4 o'clock in the morning, I'm up and I'm texting with people in Finland. So even my sleep patterns are disrupted, and I love it. And I wouldn't want to be doing anything else. I could have retired when I was 45. I plan to work and drop dead by hitting the last keystroke. Right now, that's my personal lifestyle choice because I'm an entrepreneur, and I found myself in a position where some people think, oh, this guy's a crazy workaholic. But no, I'm trying to solve really big problems. And as I get older, I feel greater and greater urgency, right? And I live in an environment which is where the risks are growing and the threats that I not only perceive, but I feel in my own direct personal life. We know the environment that we're in. I'm walking down the street in New York City and I'm thinking, what can I do? And then I get on a call with people in Kenya and we start talking about what can we do to help with the COVID problem to start saving lives. And then we go and we invest our time and our energy and our coding skills and our technologies to solve those problems, right? So you ask me that question, I'm going to give you, I think, an answer that only applies to me, right? I do not suggest to anyone else. I tell my students, if you're going to be an entrepreneur, there's this question of affordable loss, and then you have to figure out what the balance is and what do you want from life. Luca yesterday talked about, he's an entrepreneur, he was a CEO, he worked in academia and he ran a company and he has family and he stayed in Pisa and has a wonderful life. It's a balance, right? It's going to constrain how much money he can make and how large a problem he can solve, but it worked for him, right? So everyone has to find their own balance. For me, because of the conditions that I grew up in, I have no bounds, right? I'm going to Hawaii to spend a month there. They have problems. I'm asking, I got the phone number of the mayor, the governor, and the senator, okay? Because I'm going to go there, and while I'm there, I'm going to, yes, holiday beach, summer, yes, very luxurious place, but I'm going to be talking to the mayor to try to help them solve the problems that they have there, right? And so it's, again, that's my answer. It's very personal. It has to do with my lifestyle choices. I don't suggest it to everyone else. I don't expect it of anyone else, but that's a reality that I live in, and I'm not the only one.
Okay, great. Thanks for sharing, all of you. So of course, industry and academia with more stable, but it's a personal question. Every person has different needs, different requirements for their lifestyle. And of course, Ray with the disruptive schedules and the work style. Thank you for the answer. So afterwards, I think an interesting question as well is there any different way to write a CV for industry than academia? And do publications count for anything? Andrea, do you want to start with this one? You're muted, I think. I think you're muted.
Sorry. I should have said at the outset, the part of ARM that I work for is ARM Research. So we are the company's internal research and development function. And we do hire quite a lot of PhD graduates every year. We also hire undergrad and master's students as well. And certainly in ARM Research, a PhD counts and publications count, not least because publications, authorship on publications and presentations at conferences demonstrate communication skills. And those transferable skills are incredibly important to us. You know, we can go out and hire as many highly qualified technical folks as we want. You know, there are lots of people coming through the doors internationally. But what we're actually looking for are people with a good solid grounding in computer science, plus the range of transferable skills like working in a team, the communication stuff, publications. Lots of our own research staff collaborate actively with academics and are looking to joint publish and things like that. So anybody that can bring those kind of things to the table automatically stands out. And so certainly from an ARM research perspective, I would say there's very little difference in terms of writing a CV to take the next step up the academic ladder compared with an industry CV. Now, the more commercial sides of the business will be slightly different, but from a corporate R&D function, no, there's not as much difference as you might think.
Okay, anyone else wants to add anything? Frank, Ray?
Well, I can say something because I end up evaluating a lot of applications to academic positions. I cannot speak about the industrial ones. So the one thing that would help you is when you apply to a position at some university, let's say to us, be sure to have read about them, be sure to have looked into their research, because you're committing for 3, 4, 5 years being with them, and you should probably have an idea about what they're doing, why you want to go there, you know, because that's their say, hey, I want to work with you because I like your work on this, and I think I am good for that. We see when we do an interview, a phone interview, and we ask them, okay, but why us? What part of work do you know? And you realize basically, okay, you know, you seem to be famous, sort of, kind of, and we want to apply for you, but there is nothing behind, and that usually leaves a very bad impression. So it's important to have a goal. Don't go randomly to places. Look for people, look for a thing that you want to be working on. And it's not always the famous universities. I mean, a research group, or Andrea was telling that it's all about your boss and your surrounding group. And your boss and surrounding group can be actually anywhere in the world. There are very, very good groups in perhaps underrepresented universities that are doing excellent work and will be very, very helpful for you. So it's important actually to identify and say, hey, I want to be working in this field. Who is doing the work and where shall I apply? And, you know, show this also in your CV that you are actually wanting to work for there, you know? Well, or in your letter at least.
Yeah, I can I can respond from two perspectives. One is, and this is, times have changed, right? So I'm talking about many years ago when I worked with the banks. I mean, the banks that I got jobs in, Morgan Stanley, Citicorp, Bank of America, HSBC, I mean, these places, I mean, you go through 11 interviews, right? That's after they have hundreds and hundreds, thousands of applications. So once they have an interest in you, I actually went through 11 interviews over the span of time. So it's all about not the skills that you come in with, but how your ability to read the audience, speak to the audience, sell yourself into the opportunity, and then they're basically evaluating you in terms of how you would have a cultural fit within the environment. Admittedly, my personality did not fit with the bank at all, because I shun authority, I'm highly independent, I have my own ideas, I'm very outspoken, I do not put up with nonsense, because I grew up in adverse situations. I could not afford to do that, right? But I knew that banks paid a lot of money, and I was going to sell myself into that situation. I was going to say whatever I had to say to get to that bank so I can accumulate lots of money so that I didn't have to do that anymore, right? So I sold myself into, and went from one bank, and then of course I went to the next bank who then recruited me to pay me more money, then the next bank, then the next bank, until I got to the point where I had a lot of money saved, and I said, okay, I'm done with this. Now I can go do my own thing and start my own company, invest my own money and my own time, and I never have to talk to these people again, right? And now, so turning it around, so you have to do that. You got to swallow your pride. You got to do what you have to do in order to get a job and make a living. And don't do it. You're doing it to make money. You're not doing it to be happy, right? Companies are not paying you to be happy. You have to find your own happiness. They're paying you to be productive. And if you're not happy with what you're producing, that's your problem. It's not the company's problem, right? And so you've got to understand that. That's why I said in my presentation, you got to be ready to go in and do the grunt work and do the job that nobody else wants to do. And that's why they're hiring. Because if somebody else in the company wanted to do the job, they wouldn't be hiring. They wouldn't be looking. They wouldn't hire someone, right? And so that's from that perspective. Now, from the entrepreneur's perspective, when I go, I don't look at CVs. When I hire for my companies, I only look at what somebody has accomplished publicly. So I don't care what they claim. I want to see code, GitHub. I want to see a LinkedIn profile. I want to see who would give them recommendations. I look at more at the public facing, whether or not they can promote themselves, put their work out there, whether or not they have evidence that they can produce. I don't care what they say, because just like I sold myself into a job, right? I'm not going to get sold into a job. I'm not going to get sold into hiring someone. I need to see evidence. And then, because it's entrepreneurship and things, I can do, and it's a global workforce, I can do what's called a try and buy. I can give you a challenge, pay you very good money, see how you do on that challenge, and then I know what I'm dealing with, and how can I adjust around that. And then if I hire, it's hiring towards, I really know what I'm getting, and they know what they're getting and what the demands are going to be, right? So my hiring process is very different. The other thing I should say is, when I go on an interview process, I'm hiring top talent, and my esteemed colleagues would know that if they got a call, if I was to call Andrea or Frank to try and get them to consider an opportunity that that we could create together, right? They're not interviewing for me. I have to convince them. So when I go hire top talent, I spend the first at least 2 meetings selling them first, right? Because it's a new innovation, it's a new company. Maybe we have capital, maybe we don't. I got to spend a lot of time. And if I can't convince the top talent to consider coming on board, I don't care how good they are, they're not entrepreneurs, I would not hire them, right? So then at some point it flips where they're trying to convince me that they want to pursue the opportunity with the team that I have in place. And then we can talk about hiring, right? I know if I spoke to my esteemed colleagues, if I didn't do that, they wouldn't even talk to me. It would be like, I have a job. Why would I consider going and doing anything else? What do you have to say to me? So I have to sell the top talent first, right? And so that's a little bit of a trick, right? So you have to, one, have a public facing, prove that you have mastery, that you really know your stuff, right? And then people will find you, and if they can find you, then the jobs will come to you, right? I had many years where I never looked for a job. The jobs came to me, and then I could say, I'm not interested in that, I'm interested in that, no. And then eventually I have to create my own jobs and create my own opportunities. And eventually you get investors interested in you. And once you have success and you make money for investors, guess what? The investors, then you don't have to even raise money. They come and say, I have a chunk of money, bring me an idea. I want to invest in you because I know you can execute. Right? And so I have a slightly different perspective on this from academia and from industry. But again, it has to do with my specific context of being in the US and also thinking and acting like an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but it's great to have different perspectives as well, Ray. Thank you. So I think we have to, time is flying right now. We have to start thinking about finishing. I see some specific questions from programming or to collaborations with ARM. I would invite the students to ask them directly to the speakers afterwards, since we don't have time right now to talk to them. But before I give the word to Xavi, I would like to start just a quick vote so everyone can vote while Xavi and Kun finish the session. This is for us, this is for the HiPEAC team, just to get an idea. Thank you very much. And for me, that's everything.
Yes, so thanks a lot, Antonio, for guiding us around the questions. So yes, we will try to collect the rest of the questions, and especially the ones that were referring to or are referring to a specific, so to the entrepreneur or to ARM, so that we can get them like duly answered. And well, we always like to make a small wrap up of the question and of the session, and we have Kun de Busquer, the coordinator of HiPEAC, that well, we it's always a pleasure to have him as part of this session, and he has also many nice insights that well, I would like to give the word to him while this questionnaire is being answered. And
thank you, Xavi and Antonio, for organizing this this session for HiPEAC. It's very nice. And yes, you're right. The other years when we are in Fuji, I always say something at the end. I must say today, so I have a small text here that I use every year, I reuse every year. And this year, most of the things that are in my perspective have already been said by other people. So I always start by saying, well, have a dream. It's important, especially if you are at the beginning of your career, but also while you're developing your career, to have a dream, to know what you would like, what the next step would be. And what helps, I think, is to pick a role model, especially for young people. I remember when I was a PhD, my role model was a professor that I knew, and said, well, I would also like to be like that person. But today there are many more things to know what these people did. You can, for instance, go to LinkedIn and check their careers. What did they study? Where did they work? Have they been in a company before going to academia? Have they been at the university before going to a company? So that's something you can easily find out today. I think mentoring has been mentioned several times today. I think it's important to find yourself a mentor. There are many people who are willing to do that. Somebody you trust and is really trying to help you. What's also important, and that hasn't been mentioned maybe explicitly today, is to get in touch with people with decision power. It's very good to have to know 5 people in an organization where would like to make a career, but if none of these people have decision power, they will not be able to help you. So it doesn't mean that you have to go out for lunch every day with the CEO of a company, but the fact that you know these people, that they know you, that is definitely helping. And that's also something I see quite often, but that's in academia, is fake until you make it. That means if you are assistant professor, it's good to behave like an associate professor. If you're an associate professor, it's good to behave like a full professor, meaning that you show that behavior, that professionalism, and so on, and that helps you. If you behave like an assistant professor while you're an associate professor, you will not make a lot of progress in your career, probably. You know? That's one thing. Another thing that's about the role models. Another thing is about your professional development. I think it's very important, it has been said, also mentioned by Frank, it's important to focus on the why, not so much on the how and the what. Many people know how to make things, what they are doing, but how is much more difficult. And also tackle complex problems. There are many people who can easily solve all the easy problems, not the complex problems. So if you want to make a career, focus on the complex problems. They will take more time, but if you find a solution, you have more rewards. Another thing that I learned is keep working on your competences and skills and on your job market value. Once you are in an organization for 10 or for 20 years, if you're a professor at university, there's not much else that you can do than be a professor, which means that if at some point the university would fire you, that it might be hard to find another job, for instance, in a company, because you do not have the skills and the competences that they are expecting there. So always keep in mind that one day you might lose your job, or for some reason you might want to change jobs, and that you have to keep your job market value. Also know your own value, do your personal marketing, make sure that you have a LinkedIn profile so that people can know how to find you, that they also know what your value is. Don't be afraid of the unknown, pivot when there is an opportunity. Be flexible. I think that's also, there are always opportunities. You have to take them if you want to make progress. Act professionally. Aim to become a leader. That's also an important one. Show leadership. Not that many people show leadership. It's not too difficult to do that, but it's something you can learn by also looking at other people and see how they do this. So be a problem solver, not a problem maker. That's also an important thing. And another thing that I learned actually when reading a book about careers, volunteer a lot. That might be strange, but if you end up in a committee, for instance, and they're looking somebody to make the minutes, and you're the youngest one at the table, my hand would be go up immediately, say, well, I'm going to make the minutes because nobody wants to do this. So you're volunteering. That means that you create a goodwill account with other people, like the chairman of the meeting. So, and he will become your, or she will become your ambassador. So by volunteering a lot, you can create a lot of ambassadors for you and for your career, which might help you and at the time when you need them. And then there's also the personal development. So that was the professional development, what you do in the office. And the other one is what you do at home, I would say. And there are some straightforward advice. Be nice to people always. Help other people, mentor the younger people. I think if you are being mentored, you can also do the same for younger people. Stay connected to friends and family. It's important. And the reason why it's important is that you can have a very good network in your company or at university. But if one day you have bad luck, you end up in a heavy accident and you end up at home handicapped, they will visit you once, but not twice, because that's not the support network that you will need. So your support network are your friends and your family. So you should never, ever forget about them, because one day you might need them and they might need you too. Always act ethically, that's important. Try to be fair for everybody, respect your values. Another one that is important is read books and watch good movies. It's always important to get a different perspective and to keep learning. If you read a book, you are actually getting into somebody else's head, the person who wrote the book. Same for a movie. And that's important. I can tell the difference between people who never read books and people who read books. Read, I would say, 10 books per year. That's 1 per month. That's very good. And then also, that's also important to have fun in. Be passionate about whatever you are doing. If you don't like something, quit it, look for something else, but try to be passionate. And then you will not have, and then even if you work 12, 14, 16 hours a day, like some people in this panel are doing, I'm also one of them, this will not be a burden. You will just, it's just fun. That's what you like to do. And then you will be happy about what's your job. And also if you can combine it with your personal life, that's even better. And be happy all the time. But from research, we know, the easiest way to be a happy person is to make other people happy. Actually, that's very simple. So if you're good to other people, normally you should be happy too. And that's, and of course you have to be have a bit of luck too, not to become ill and all the other things, and not to end up in an accident. But well, this is in the category bad luck. There's not much you can do about that. But all the rest you have a bit of control. So that's my, these are my final words for this session.
Words of wisdom.
So thanks a lot for all these words. So it is normally a pity when we are in ACACES previous year live. So this session is taking place in the evening, and so we normally have a good chance to stay talking, to go for a beer, to keep on sharing time with each other. A gelato. So what I would encourage you now as you close, just try to do something as well. Just to keep this nice mood as I was telling, so I've seen that some of the questions have been already answered or are on the way of being answered. So we will try to keep on making sure that you get all the questions answered. And for the ones that are starting your careers as well, we encourage you to head to the HiPEAC portal and to the jobs portal and to get your career started from here. So we strongly hope that this was like a small grain that will help you along, and that over the years, after some years, then you can think about this such a session that was having been like eye-opening. And so I would like to thank all the speakers for all the interesting words and interesting insights. So Andrea, Ray, and Frank. Thanks a lot, Koen, for every year's speech and for giving us the opportunity to organize all these sessions. So hope it is interesting for all the participants. Also, thanks a lot, Antonio, because he's been like from behind, setting up everything and bringing the panel together and collaborating with everything. And also thanks Eneco for setting up all the infrastructure. So said it, I think it's 2 minutes to 5:30. So I think it's time for you to go for gelato or beer, or to keep on working or to go back with your families. So thanks a lot, and bye-bye. And any further question, we can meet in Mattermost, or just feel free to write us.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.